Hey guys, I'm Logan Bodenhamer, and I'm going to be explaining my newest vision tech project called Lindsborg AR. So basically what I wanted to achieve with this project is to learn how to make augmented reality apps in Unity 3D. And so what I wanted to do was start learning the basics of how to make an augmented reality app. And I wanted to make it in Unity 3D because I use Unity 3D most when I develop games. And as far as the content for this app, I wanted to build an app that tracks different objects around Lindsborg so that maybe eventually I could build like a tourist sort of app so that when people visit town they would be able to hold their phones up to different places and possibly see more information or more detailed descriptions of them. So I'm not going to go into full detail with the pre-project, but I did have one, and it lasted almost as long as my real project. Basically, the point of my pre-project, I didn't have to do this, but in order to do my full project, I needed to have a working phone, because I don't actually own a phone that is connected to data, and most of the problems I encountered in my pre-project were because of that. So I had to try and track down an old phone, and most of them didn't work for several different reasons. And when I finally did find one, Unity didn't like my phone's OS, which is the operating system, because it was for Android 4.1, which is kind of old. So for working around, I did find a phone, and I finally, after a lot of panic, I finally discovered that the problem with Unity and not wanting my current OS was that my Vuforia plugin, which is the plugin that allows me to use augmented reality, was too new, and I needed to switch it back a few versions to get it to work. Alright, so for part 1 of my project lasted between weeks 1 and 2, and that was basically setting up all the basic augmented reality stuff, like getting some image targets and learning how to make the image targets the best they can possibly be and things like that. So I learned how to set up image targets, which I will show you right now. So basically this is Vuforia's website, and basically what you want to do is you can go into Target Manager, and if you have an account, you'll want to start off by making a license, but once you have a license, you can add a database, which is basically something you'll download and import into Unity that will tell Unity all of the different images and any information attached to them. So this is the database for my project. And this is all of the image targets I have inside the database. The ratings here are how well I'm able to track an object. So let's see this one here. I'll show you why it doesn't like it very much. Oh, hold on, wrong button. So it doesn't like this very much because there are very few points for it to track, and all those points are spread out. Whenever I upload an image into Vuforia, it will pick out different trackable points in the image, so that in the app, if it sees an object and it recognizes all the points in that specific pattern, no matter what perspective it's in, it'll be able to track it. And this is a really bad point layout. But if it'll load, oh darn it. Alright, but in this one there are a whole bunch of points, and they're arranged in a pattern that is much more trackable than the previous image. So that's how I set up image targets. And for creating basic AR, basically all I had to do was learn how to import the database into Unity and attach an object to it. So I'll show you Unity here. This is my project and my workspace for my project. And here is the image target that I have set up for China's sign. Basically, what I have here is the image target itself, which basically looks like a plane. In the newest version of Vuforia, it'll look a lot more recognizable because it will have the image in the background, but they didn't have that in this version of Vuforia. But so this is my China tracker, and all I had to do in order to get anything to follow this image target was basically just make all the objects I wanted it to put on top of it as children. So these are all of the planes or flat images I wanted to have on my target. And then I learned how to optimize augmented reality tracking. That involved a little Photoshop because all I had to do was, when I went around town, I took the photos, and oftentimes they were at really odd perspectives, which isn't good for augmented reality tracking, because if you look at it at a normal perspective, the object you're trying to project onto it will be at the perspective that you took the image at originally, so it won't be flat. So I learned how to alter the perspective of images in Photoshop so I could get it as straight on as I possibly could. And I also enhanced like the lightness and contrast in the images so that it'd be able to track the points better. And then part two wasn't quite as complex as part one, but it was basically just refining the app and making it more interactable. So I learned how to create buttons that are able to be activated through a gaze UI, which is basically just a little dot in the center of the screen, and whenever it sees a button in game that it will be able to interact with, the little dot expands and then it starts contracting. And if it gets back to its original size, it'll act as a click, so that whenever it clicks a button, the button will react and do whatever you told it to do. And then I learned how to control a button through a script. And that was important because you can control a button through an inspector, which is basically just the menu in Unity, but it only gives you very limited options. And I wanted the button to be able to do something like pull up a menu for a certain amount of time and then go away again, but it didn't allow me to do that. So I'll show you the inspector here. Let's see, where is it? Ah, there it is. On this one here, I have a button, and if you go into this button, this is the inspector right over here, and if I want it to do something, I can add a function for it to do, so I can tell it if I want it to run on runtime, or if I want it to work in the editor itself, so I'd be able to click the button in the editor without actually having to start the game, or I can just disable the button. Then I could select an object I want it to alter when I click the button, such as, let's just click on that, and then I can tell it to do something specific, like for transform, that's moving or growing or shrinking or all that stuff. So this is my project plan review, and basically what I learned through this project is to be flexible, because overall my project plan turned out completely different from what I had expected in the beginning. I had a completely different layout for what I wanted my app to be. I wanted it to be more of a game than a tourist app, but I learned real quick that as far as I could make a game, but it would involve getting a paid license for another augmented reality app company, so that wasn't going to work. And I had to rethink my plan over and over again until I finally got my actual final project. So here is just a short video of what my project looked like in the end. And this is kind of early. This is before I got the gaze UI implemented, but that was because it was kind of annoying when I tried to build it onto the phone. After I finished the project, it didn't like the canvas, but there was unfortunately nothing I could do about that as I didn't have a newer phone. But if you're building an app for your phone, you probably won't have the same issues as I did. So you shouldn't have to worry about that. Alright. So this is my overview. As far as learning, I improved my ability to persevere through challenges in a process. And most of my challenges actually came in the pre-project. There was quite a good many difficulties in the beginning, but once I made it through, it was actually quite fun to see how all of that perseverance paid off in the final thing. And problem solving was essential in this project, especially in the beginning, as I mentioned above, because I just had to think of new strategies and new ways constantly to get through issues, because I would say just about every single time my first solution did not work. Now, if I were to do this project again, I would have a much more stable plan at the beginning, because at the beginning, part of the reason why I had to be so flexible was because I hadn't planned as much as I should have. So having a much more stable plan would have solved all of that rethinking stuff. And as far as my biggest success for this project goes, that was when I got the phone to run the app for the very first time. It was such a good feeling to know that I had finally succeeded through all of the trials I had to get through to get that phone to work. Well, thanks for watching my video, guys. I hope you can build an app of your own one day.